in a humiliating way. Suddenly, Sheng asks Beowu if he is genuinely unbelievably good and if he needs to surrender obediently. Then, hearing this, Beowu, Yongyu and Wu Li are surprised. After this, Sheng took hold of Beowu's arm and lifted him off the ground, saying he would like to know if he enforced the law fairly, then asked how he would handle criminals like them. Hearing this, Beowu, heading down, replies that he doesn't need to console him anymore and that they are the criminals Madame Qi is looking for. If they are arrested, naturally, Madame Qi will personally interrogate them all. However, Sheng, putting their hand on Beowu's shoulder, says they will trouble him to show them the way and bring them to that person. Then Sheng moves ahead, telling Beowu his brother isn't dead yet, they are still in the mountain, so he can see them for himself after this matter is resolved. Hearing this, Beowu surprisingly turned his head to look at Sheng. Then Sheng says if he cooperates well, he will probably be able to have his brother back safely. Beowu gets angry hearing this and angrily asks Sheng if he knows he is threatening him. Sheng turns back and replies that, on the contrary, he is inviting him to be a witness to the personality of the present king of Gangyi City, and to see for himself if she is worth it for him to be acting this righteously. On the other side, Qi was watching this in her magic globe, and then she angrily said, Beowu, this idiot has also failed to accomplish the mission, and it looks like it's time to report to the city lord to ask her to handle this matter personally. After this, Beowu returns to the city lord's mansion. There, he kneels before the city lord and greets her. Seeing him there, Ducini asked if there was a matter he wanted to report, as he could see she was swamped right now, as she was lying on the couch holding paper in hand and Qi was sitting beside her. Beowu noticed that the northern suburbs were planning to sell their land in Gangyi City. He came to report this because, previously, she had shown interest in that piece of land. Hearing this, Ducini looks toward Qi, asking her opinion. Qi smiles and replies that Her Highness can invite that person to discuss it. That way, she will naturally know the answer. How is it? Then she makes a weird face, telling her it is also time to make the complete preparations. Beowu listens to them but remains silent. Qi orders him to bring them to the living room of the city lord's official residence. After this, Beowu brings them there. Sheng and Li sit there while Wu Li stands by Sheng's side, and Li looks around in fear. She asked how it had come to this as she never would have thought that a small person like her would be able to meet the city lord herself. And what if she messes things up this time? Hearing this, Sheng put a hand on Li's hand, saying don't worry, even if she messes up, she will still have him there. Hearing this, Li blushed and lovingly replied that after this meeting, let's go back to their hometown and hold their marriage there while Sheng requested her to calm down a little. However, the city lord arrived there. After coming there, she sat on her couch, saying as she heard that someone was selling a piece of land that the city lord's residence was interested in. After this, she lies down with her legs on the couch arm, asking if she is qualified enough to participate while Qi and Beowu stand on both sides of her couch. After this, Li slightly bent down before her, saying first she thanked the city lord for inviting them, and then she said it was a pleasure to meet her. Seeing them there, Qi feels something strange and thinks this group of idiots seems to have one less person in it. Then Li goes back and sits in her place, telling her she is Li Shi from the Wang clan. Her late husband passed away a long time ago, and the only daughter she had also died tragically in a battle. She is a lone soul who is finding it challenging to decide. Fortunately, her late husband's family sent her a person to represent her in her decision. Hearing this, Ducini, looking towards Sheng, asks if he is the representative she is talking about. Then she asks with a smile what price he wants to sell the land for. Sheng points his finger that to seeing this, Ducini asked to see Yuan as a deserted wasteland on the border. This amount of price is quite suitable. Meanwhile, Qi, standing at Ducini's back, says no, Her Highness might have misunderstood something. Then Ducini surprisingly asks Qi if it is 2 million yuan unless it has created a marketplace. How could it be worth 2 million yuan? Qi makes a weird face, telling Ducini if her guess isn't wrong, the price he is offering must be 200 million yuan. Hearing this, Ducini shockingly asks for 200 million yuan. Then Qi, looking towards Sheng, asks him if the underground had been excavated into the celestial bronze mine. Little kid, and to the point where it could make him dare to spout such nonsense. Sheng looks toward her in return and asks if she must be Madame Qi if he is right, and no wonder she was good enough at predicting his offering price. She truly has the power of divination. Hearing this, Qi smiles, and Sheng replies, telling Qi it is too bad she slightly missed the prediction. It's not 200 million yuan, it's 20 billion yuan, and it is not even the price of its mineral resources. Hearing this, Ducini and Qi are shocked and furious. Saying this, Sheng stands up, holding his weapon, and says he wants them to pay for all the military expenses for the war they plan to launch. Hearing this, Ducini, in anger, breaks her necklace and then angrily asks Sheng how could a lowlife like his dare to act with such impudence in her residence. Then she gets up and takes out her weapon, which makes her wonder how good he could be. Seeing Ducini holding her gun, Wooly tells the Sheng Lord she is a humanized dwarf from the dwarf tribes. Then she remembers while creating the image of a man in her mind who alone kills a monster with his axe, and then she tells the dwarf tribes that, indeed, he possesses incredible strength, and they are second to none in terms of stamina. Other than that, their stubbornness is also very well known. Once they have decided, she is afraid that nothing could change their mind. However, Ducini moves towards Sheng, holding her weapon, saying he knows she is not someone he should mess with, but he still does and now doesn't blame her for her actions. As soon as she throws her weapon towards Sheng, Wooly stops her and her gun with the sword. However, stopping Ducini there, Wooly thinks her strength is incredible, and this kind of power isn't any lower than her, and then asks her if she must be of a high savage rank. Hearing this, Ducini smiles while her dwarf tribe level is 81 savage rank, and they both stand in the air for the fight. Then Sheng, sitting on the couch holding a weapon, says to Wooly she is indeed stronger than her, but holding up for 5 minutes under her immense pressure should be easy. Also, Li was standing beside him. Wooly closed her eyes and replied. Not only 5 minutes after saying this, she opened her eyes, saying she could even defeat her. After this, Wooly moves toward Ducini to attack her. Seeing this, Ki thinks it's weird. What is their purpose for coming there this time? Also, Beowu is looking toward Ki. Then Ki thinks such an unplanned provocation clearly shows that they are just wasting their time there, and then suddenly she realizes their real purpose for coming there. At this very moment, in the secret armory of Gangyi City, Beowu checks the missiles, weapons, and all the machinery and soldiers protecting that place. A soldier enters, asking Commander Beowu if he has completed the examination. Beowu looks toward the weapon and asks the soldier about the firearm. The soldier replies there is one more thing left, and Beowu says the city lord must use these weapons whenever necessary. Any small mistakes will not be tolerated, so he is there to recheck it. The soldier replies, telling her to be at ease. All the equipment there is always checked daily, and Madame Ki is responsible for practicing divination and defending this place. Also, the maintenance status of the equipment is enough for them to be put into battle at any time. And if anyone wants to sneak into this place, Madame Ki will quickly realize it immediately. Beowu smiles, saying, right, he can continue doing his job, and then the soldier salutes him. Yes, Beowu stands there, smiling and thinking everyone is convinced of Madame Ki's ability. However, Yangyu, wearing the same suit as Beowu and holding her weapon, stands aside from that missile machine and smiles, thinking she can be at ease. On the other side, in the living room of the city lord, Ki angrily says to Wooly while holding her magic globe and pointing toward them presumptuously how dare she lay her hands on the city lord. Meanwhile, guards also come there holding weapons. Li turns to look back, seeing guards there. She gets scared, while Sheng doesn't care, and he relaxingly sits on the couch, calmly holding his weapon. Madame Ki ordered the guard to kill Li. Hearing this guard fire toward her, Li quickly clings to Sheng in fear. Sheng, holding her, says, picking the one with the most minor defense to kill. No one has ever dared to use his underhanded methods against him before. Then he tells Li to come close to him and hide. Saying this, he absorbs her into his body, and all the bullets that come out of the guard gun to kill Li stop right there near Sheng. Some shots enter his body, but these bullets do not affect him. Seeing this, Ki shockingly thinks, what kind of ability is that? Why can't she identify it? However, some of the bullets hit Sheng's head and stopped there. Then, he started to shoot them down right after the explosion and utilized the weight and speed of the shots to kill the enemy. Moreover, a bullet penetrates a little into the skin of Sheng's arm. Then he asks if people trust toys like these nowadays. Saying this, he absorbs all the bullets into his hand. Seeing this, the guard stands surprised, and then he smiles, saying a weapon should be simple yet effective. For example, the bullet and resonance in this room. After this, he presses all the bullets in his hand, saying explode, and then the shells burst. Seeing this, the guard surprisingly says the cartridge exploded, and their surfaces are all destroyed. Then Sheng sat calmly on the couch, his legs crossed and his hand tied. Says only through using this principle to develop weapons can it be called such as for this toy. Obviously, there is no way it can be called a weapon, and the world without this king is progressing slowly and barely has any significant changes. On the other side, the fight continues between Wooly and Ducini. Wooly stops her weapon with a sword, seeing Ducini smile, saying, as expected from the dragon tribe, she can't defeat her by relying on strength only. Hearing this, Wooly held her sword, causing her hands to tremble like this. It's been long since she encountered a formidable opponent like her. Meanwhile, Ducini, creating the heavenly iron will, says to Wooly that she is qualified enough to see the true power of this city lord and to be careful as she might get crushed by her. Then, while using her magic, she steps back toward Wooly while Wooly backs away so fast that she slams her sword into the ground. As Wooly backs away, her sword goes back, ripping through the floor, and she, with the support of her sword, stops at one place with incredible difficulty, thinking it feels like there is some force pulling her back. Seeing this, Ducini smiles, holding her weapon, telling Wooly this very weapon of hers is named the Duojin, and she has obtained it, and its power after making a contract with the demon boundary. After activating the heavenly iron will, the total weight of her and her weapon is 2.4 tons. As long as her metal substance is heavier than theirs, she won't be controlled by her. Then Ducini says, in other words, all the metal elements within her body are now under her control and crawl before her. While Wooly crawled on the floor, her sword was stuck near her, and she didn't understand where all her strength was gone. Then, while looking at Ducen, she thinks ordinary tricks seem to be useless against her, and to defeat her, she has no choice but to use that technique. Meanwhile, Sheng, sitting on the couch, says to Wooly that they are there only to negotiate. Fighting and killing like that isn't the purpose of their visit. And if he had to lay a hand on her from the beginning, he would have just asked Deathbird to deal with her. And by this time, her residence would have been in a real mess. Then he tells Wooly that now she can back off, and he will take care of the rest. She blinks and replies, all right, she shall do as he wishes. After this, she goes and stands behind Sheng. Seeing this, Ducini thinks, could it be that this idiot already realized that the power of the heavenly iron will is impenetrable, and making him try to get this over with by negotiating now? But even if that is true, he should have been affected by her earlier as every creature has metal elements within them. But why wasn't he? After this, Ducini orders her iron will to do as she wishes, thinking that since Wooly is hiding behind him, she must exert strength on him. Meanwhile, everything in the living room, including all the lights, bulbs, lamps, furniture, and utensils, unleashed from the wall, and their places flying into the air, move towards Sheng and Wooly to attack. However, she is shocked that he possesses the metal elements in his body. And he surprisingly thinks, what is this? Just how he managed to do that? Is he heavier than her? No, he can't possess more than 2.4 tons of metal elements. Under the very rule, no metal can contend against her power. After this, in anger, Ducini sends her power to Sheng, saying if not, she will drive out every single metal element within his body and let him live the worst life that he could ever imagine, but her every attack failed. Like the rest of the furniture in the living room, Ducini is suddenly drawn to Sheng, but he stops her by her stomach with his arm while sitting on the couch. Seeing this, she gets shocked, asking how this is possible. Sheng replies by saying forces always occur in pairs. It's basic common sense. Then he says, let him ask her what percentage it is. The 20 billion fund that she prepared for the war out of Gangi City's fiscal income. Hearing this, she shouts, saying she is the king of her city and how she spends her money is none of his business. Then Sheng starts slapping her butt. However, she starts to cry, asking how dare he slap her butt. After this, Sheng, looking toward Beowu, says to Ducini, looking at her underling's expression, he is sure it must have been an unreasonable amount of military spending. He has seen her city before. Urban government is well organized, and the people live a peaceful and contented life. There is no sign of hegemony expansion. Once she ties a city like this to a circle of war, and it fails, it will become a horrifying disaster for the people. At the same time, he was telling her, and at the same time, he was slapping at her butt, saying, slapping her, it's nothing compared to that. Ducini was crying, thinking about why he was so strong even though she couldn't free herself from him. While crying, she shouted, calling Beowu and Qi and asking what they were doing there. Are they just going to stand there and do nothing? Beowu turns their head and looks back toward Qi, telling Ducini that Madame Qi is already gone. Saying this, he hits Qi's clone, telling Ducini that Qi left her clone there, and as for him, he asked that the military expenditure is equivalent to 2 years of their city's disposable fiscal income, and the plan for launching a war were all proper. Then he angrily says, as a commander in charge of Gangi city troops, how could he not know such a vast amount of military spending was being used? Saying this, Beowu turns his head while ignoring her and looking aside. He says what Sheng says is true. Hitting her butt is already a light punishment for her, keep hitting her and don't mind him. While Sheng is still slapping her butt, saying a dwarf's butt is indeed as hard as a stone, and he doesn't feel like hitting her again. It despises him while she is crying and shouting for help. Then Sheng leaves her and makes her stand there, saying it seems like the city lord is hard to convince. Then Sheng, holding his weapon, Wuli and Li with him, goes from there, saying since that is the case, let's invite Madame Qi back and have her confess the conspiracy behind this, while Ducini and Beowu stand behind, looking toward them. After this, Sheng calls Yongyu, but the call gets disconnected, and he understands, thinking it seems like he needs to do things unbefitting of an emperor again. Then Sheng goes to the secret armory of Gangyi City. As soon as he enters, Qi stands there in the dark and says he has come later than expected. Then Qi pointed toward Yongyu, who was standing behind Qi, scared, and said Sheng, making her wonder why he would offer 20 billion yuan for that piece of land. After this, she smiled, saying that he had been stalling this whole time enough for this little kitty to infiltrate her armory and transmit what information she gathered outside. After this, Yongyu starts crying, and while closing her eyes and touching the ring of life worn around her neck, she says to Sheng's master forgive her. She is no match for her. Then Qi smiles and brutally holds the Yongyu ring of life chain around her neck, the same ring she wears on her neck. Holding this, she says to Sheng that for this master and servant ring of life, all the casualties suffered by the person who wears the master ring will be reflected in the servant ring. Once the servant ring is too far away from the master ring, it will automatically strangle its user. However, though she has kidnapped his underling and is still not confident enough that he will harm her, she smiles, saying it's simply because he is Xin Sheng, the so-called venerable emperor. In front of a fearsome devil like him, she is afraid that he won't even blink an eye even if she sacrifices some of his underlings there. Hearing this, Sheng still silently stands there. Seeing this, she smiles and remains silent. Now, she is startled that she knows his true identity, and despite knowing that he must be wondering why she dared to show such an attitude towards him. Then, while leading the terminal in her hand, she tells Sheng she can perform divination, allowing her to know the past and predict the future. But most importantly, she is capable of obtaining countless numbers of rare treasures in this world. He shows himself again after thousands of years but gets forced to death so soon, and just after his comeback, she asks him if it is a pity. Hearing this, Sheng calls Yongyu and extends his hand toward her and tells her to come there to him. She looks toward him, quickly removes that ring from her neck, and runs toward him while Qi surprisingly looks toward her. She ran toward Sheng and hugged him tightly, then looked at him with teary eyes. Sheng, holding her and looking toward her, says she has finished the task he ordered her to do. That's already enough. Saying this, he absorbed her into his body. Seeing this, Qi surprisingly asked what kind of ability it was. How the hell did he do that? Sheng replies that he has only used one type of power from the beginning. All those subjects he had from 1,000 years ago were the only ones aware of his perfect imitation. Initially, he needed an exceptional calculating ability to carry out an accurate representation to serve as its foundation. And thanks to her blabbering just now, the wasted time allowed him to analyze and solve that ring. After this, Qi smiles, and her ring of life starts to light up, and then she says it's nothing but a mere antique that should have been tossed underground 1,000 years ago, so what if he was able to do such a thing? However, it seems like he has underestimated her too much. Saying this, she takes out the lantern, telling him that since that's the case, out of respect, she will let him taste her deadly treasure then. Seeing the lantern, Sheng asks if this is the weapon produced by the celestial bronze. She laughs, saying it's not the weapon. It's just a tiny lantern and not too bad in terms of power. Then she turned the lantern on and directed it toward him, saying it contained 1,000,000 rem of radiation dose. However, millions of radiation were released from it on Sheng, and an explosion occurred. Then, the ground burnt and split up from where that explosion happened while smoke started rising. Seeing this, Qi laughed, saying that it was a lie just now, it was a particle beam, and with the celestial bronze consolidating it, she didn't have to worry about the backlash of its residual radiation. No being can avoid it. Moreover, it's impossible to survive after being damaged by such a tremendous amount of radiation. Meanwhile, Sheng came out of the smoke, replying, "Indeed, no being could ever bear this kind of radiation," while dusting off his clothes. Sheng says, fortunately, he came there naked, and if it weren't for this attack just now, the entirety of his clothing would have been destroyed for sure. Seeing him there alive, she gets shocked, then Sheng asks, "It's weird. Didn't she claim to be an expert in knowing the past and predicting the future? And if that's so, why does she see a pathetic expression on her face?" Then, pointing toward her, he asks, and her following words are, "This is the mightiest weapon of all time." why wasn't it able to kill this boy? After this, she angrily looked toward him, saying this was the most potent weapon of all time, so why wasn't it able to kill him? Shang, while creating the shelter of his mimicry all around and standing there holding weapons, replies to her, telling them that it's because, in front of his perfect imitation, that calculating ability that she is so proud of. And it's not worth mentioning at all. Seeing this, she surprisingly asks what it feels like there is something surrounding her. Shang, holding the little substance in hand, replies that's true to some extent theoretically. It's the minor substance in the whole universe, colorless and odorless, to the area where she can't even see and feel its shadow. As long as it wishes, there will be no being and energy that could ever penetrate it. And initially, such a thing could never exist in this world, but theoretically, it is possible. Just like the world used to be before, where there were no such things as the terminal. People could make it through the cognition of the laws in the universe. Meanwhile, so many of the minor substances spread around her, and they both stood under the shelter of Shang's mimicry. Seeing this, she gets furious, and he tells her that those countless things around her are all imitations of objects that were done by using a part of his body, which makes every one of them connected to him. After this, he steps forward, saying there is no information he wouldn't know and no object he can't quickly grasp. Then Shang, looking toward his hand, says the person who invented this very advanced ability named it the controllable domain. Then Qi jumps up in the air, calling for emergency teleportation. She tries hard to jump out of the shelter of his mimicry, but she fails. And then, while falling, she angrily asks what she can't escape from there. As she fell, Shang told her she already knew who he was and then asked if she also recognized this scepter of him. She heatedly looks toward him, and then Shang creates some power in his wand and shows it to Qi. This wand is known as the deity's trident, and one of its abilities is being able to contain the three cores of the universe. Fate, order, desire, and the strength of these powers aren't as scary as she may perceive them. Instead, it's the fact that its effect will never change. After this, he leaves that scepter there, and it stands there itself, and then he tells her it is only possible for her to get out of his controllable domain if she can change the law of the space itself. Then, while pointing toward the specter, he says the order is in the palm of his hand and then asks if she thinks he would let her easily distort it. After this, she falls to the ground and sits there. She begs him for her life in fear and requests him to wait a minute and not kill her. Then she asks him in fear if he wants to regain the domination he once lost, His Highness, and she knows many secrets that would benefit him. After this, he comes close to her, and while creating that poisonous tea in hand, he smiles and replies he doesn't plan on killing her at first. He just wanted to return the present she sent him the other day. Seeing that poisonous tea in his hand, she sacredly asks what this Shang smile is, telling him the first tea they drank as soon as they arrived in Gangyi City. Beowu said it was poison, but he didn't have the time to analyze what kind it was. Telling this, he opens her mouth, saying he is giving it back to her, so enjoy it herself slowly. As for her secret, he must let go of his controllable domain and get into her brain, and then naturally, everything will become apparent to him. She was crying and requesting him not to do this, but Shang poured that poison tea into her mouth, and as soon as the poison went into her mouth, her eyes went crooked, and she fell backward. Seeing this, Shen, bending down, says he can already be said to be proficient enough at calculating and scheming. But even so, it still doesn't change the fact that he has been plotted by that damn demon Boundary, and ended up disappearing for 1,000 years. After this, Sheng moved from there, thinking she wanted to use the calculating and predicting ability again to stir up the whole world and reap its benefits. And sure enough, the only lesson that the people of this world can learn from history is that they can't remember anything from the past. However, a discussion occurs between Ducini and Sheng in the City Lord's mansion. Surprisingly, Ducini stands up and, putting his hand on the table, asks Sheng if he is Xin Sheng, a kid like him, the venerable emperor. Hearing this, Li stood behind Sheng, blushed, and put her hands on her face. Then, she tells truthfully, putting aside his small appearance. His size is much bigger than she thought, making people feel safe around him. Hearing this, Sheng, sitting on the couch, tells Li not to say things that can make others misunderstand easily. Saying this, he puts a hand in front of his body, which he has already absorbed, that huge celestial bronze mountain, telling Ducini that his main body is indeed significant. Loading some celestial bronze and a few men is easy enough for him. If he gets rid of his perfect imitation right now, this residence of hers is going to become useless. Then Ducini, making a fist with her hands on the table, angrily asks what he wants to do and if he wants to get rid of her to take over the throne. And by doing so, is he preparing for the reunification of this world again? Then Sheng throws a token toward her, saying look at this. First, he obtained this when he did a body search on Qi's eye. Seeing the picture of the girl on the token card, she picks that card. Surprisingly, it says the token of Bay Lily, the Emperor's special agent, and she has been deceived all this time. Then she tells the Empire of Bay Lily has dominated the mainland for thousands of years, and it's all thanks to their vast fertile land and abundant mineral resources, which they heavily rely on. The Northern Alliance was also established because of that. Hearing this, Sheng says it seems like she already understands the entirety of the situation. Then she says that Qi's eye entered the City Lord's residence 2 years ago due to her accomplishment of discovering a few mineral resources. She displayed her abilities and did an outstanding job with them quickly after entering the City Lord's residence. Back then, when she proposed the suggestion to raid Uter, their neighboring country, to expand the territory of Gangi City, she was entirely not suspicious of her. Moreover, Uter is a small independent country between the Bailai Empire and Gangi City, where Qi's eye controls the armed forces. It's expected that she would only need 3 to 4 days to conquer the entire territory of Uter. Hearing this, Sheng adds his points, saying by that time, the Bay Lily Empire would take advantage of the situation and then dispatch their troops to take them. Gangi City and Uter are down in one go, and it's killing 2 birds with 1 stone, so her 2 years of effort have been wasted on the Bay Lily Empire. Hearing this, Dusini sits on the couch, presses the seat hard with her hand, and then closes her eyes, saying she has been deceived up to this point, and she is speechless. However, Sheng throws that ring of life toward Dusini, which gets locked on her neck. Seeing this, she is surprised, then Sheng says an apology is useless. Just receive her punishment obediently. Seeing this ring on her neck, she heatedly looked toward him, and a similar call was also on Li's neck, who stood beside Sheng. Then he tells Li it's the servant ring of the master and servant ring of life, and the master ring will be on Madame Li's body. Then he stands up, turns his head, and blinks his eye, saying to Dusini that he will imitate Qi's eye's scarf skin for Madame Li to use. So, he lets her stay beside her and acts as Qi's eye in the future, and he wants to make the Bay Lily Empire believe that their plan in Gangi City is still going well. Then Dusini also stands up and doesn't tell her he is planning to deal with them directly. And Bay Lily is a massive empire with a foundation of nearly 1,000 years. Then Shen, before leaving, replies to her that's what a king should worry about, and it has nothing to do with her doing her job well as the city lord and taking good care of her people. Then he goes from there, thinking for what reason his trip to the north, this time living his whole life as a king, will naturally go to wander off. After this, they leave Li in her hometown. She, with a teary eye, asks Sheng if he is going to leave now and what she is supposed to do if he leaves her there alone. Then Sheng smiles, blinks her eye, and, pointing toward her, says the role she is acting isn't a mall figure but a senior advisor of the city lord's residence. Then, looking toward Beowu, who stands aside, Li Sheng asks why their brother is sticking himself to a passing traveler like him. Perhaps the man he is looking for is already beside her. Hearing this, Li and Beowu surprisingly loom toward each other, and then Li starts blushing and looking at Beowu. She asks if she is sorry for asking this so boldly. She is married. While thinking why she feels like she has been targeted by a huntsman just now, Beowu is surprised to hear this. Meanwhile, Tu Shua comes there flying in the air, creating her spiritual power, smiling and telling after receiving little Sheng's message. She immediately brought Ming Ming and Wen Wen there. Then she tells Sheng that Ming Ming is still good. But Wen Wen is a little while Wang stands aside and looks toward Beowu surprisingly because he is looking toward her lovingly. While Sheng listens to Tu Shuya's words, he starts thinking and then says Beowen's arrogance, anger, and fear have all been devoured. If he is not treated, he will probably never feel these 3 kinds of emotions again in this life. And the deaf bird stands behind Sheng, gets scared, and says he won't blame her, right. Meanwhile, Beowu prohibits Sheng, saying he doesn't need to be treated, it is good like this, and he doesn't have to spend so much time worrying about him. While Beowen lies there, he starts to cry and angrily asks Beowu if he is his brother. After this, Yongyu asks Sheng if they are going to Uter, and the Bay Lily Empire in the north. Then Sheng shows her the history book and replies that they don't need to rush, and he happens to buy a history book. Hence, they can kill some time on the way there. Then Yongyu heads down and asks if she can go along with them based on her strength after they have been through those kinds of situations. Won't she just become a burden to all of them? Hearing this, Tu Shuya rushes over and hugs Yongyu, asking what she is talking about back then. If it wasn't for how quick-witted and clever she was, she is afraid they would have died a long time ago. Then Sheng tells Yangyu he will teach her how to become stronger, and for the past 1,000 years, all living things with intelligence have had their adventures, and she gained their different ultimate skill by contracting with the demon boundary. But the price for doing so is that from this moment onwards, her life will be him to decide. Hearing this, Yangyu, sitting on the ground, replies she is willing to risk her life for her master and that her life and death are his to bestow. Then he tells Yangyu to put her hand on the deity's trident, slightly cross her fingers, and connect them, and she does as he tells her. Then he tells her to close her eyes, empty her mind, not think of anything else in her head, and recite Dichi's name silently. However, in other words, she feels herself where the moon and stars are all around, and the demon boundary tells her. According to the law of the order, she has successfully established temporary communication with the demon boundary above the night sky in fate's recognition of the long journey that she has walked. Her sense of loyalty is high like the moon, and her actions shine like the star. Then, the demon boundary asks her what her desire is, and she tells him her passion. She was physically present there, but mentally she was in another world. However, she felt that the deity's trident stood in her body while Wooly and Tushuya were worriedly watching her from behind. Then Yangyu opened her eyes, and, looking toward her hand, she said she had become stronger because her level was raised from 8 to 14. Seeing this, she hugged Sheng tightly while the front part of her body hit Sheng's face, and with teary eyes, she thanked him, saying from now on, she wouldn't cause him trouble again. While Sheng asks, isn't this behavior of hers already causing him trouble? Then, while looking toward her bosom, Sheng says that the one who will cause them more problems in the future is probably he. Hearing this, she surprisingly asks how that could ever happen. Don't tease them like that, master. Suddenly, he felt something in his body. Then, while holding the area of his heart, he replied he wasn't teasing or joking. After he obtained the mystery of life from the demon boundary, he began to feel some anxiety that he had never experienced in his life. Seeing this, she gets scared and tears start flowing from her eyes. Then, he surprisingly thinks his body interaction made him feel the lower part of his body responding, missing something while looking at the night for the first time, and when he was about to end, Baowen's feelings of sympathy appeared out of nowhere. Also, when he imitates a dead person, he feels Yangyu's sorrow. Thinking this is all, he replies to Yangyu that he finally understands. Aside from making him more substantial, the power of the mystery of life has also entrusted him with something that he has never had before. Then he tells them if it were the old robot-like emperor, Xin Sheng, he would have entered Gangi City yesterday. To eliminate Ki's eye, she announces her crime and, at the same time, takes advantage of Ducini's neglect of her duty to replace her status as the city lord. He has met many types of humans and knows that human nature may not be a valuable tool on his path to kingship. Hearing this, 3 of them are surprised. Then he says, however, that human nature is more like a dangerous trap for the most part. While putting a hand on his face, he thinks it could be the price for trespassing the demon boundary and seizing its power. After this, Sheng and the 3 of them ride on the beast cart from there to Uter, and Sheng, throughout the way, reads that history book about his own life. From that book, he learns that the venerable emperor Xin Sheng disappeared into the demon boundary after 2 years of conquering all living beings. And before reaching 100 years, the descendants of every tribe started to have human characteristics. And the dragon tribe was the first to leave, returning to the top of the mountains. Before reaching 300 years, all tribes stopped serving under the name of Xin Sheng, causing the empire's fall. Then, while reading a book, he asks if the dragon tribe was the first to leave the empire, and Wooly sits on the seat in front of him. She replies yes, but she doesn't understand why the ancestors made that decision at the time. Then, Sheng, closing the book, tells 3 of them that all tribes are humanized, and it seems like some unknown events occurred when he entered the demon boundary. Meanwhile, the beast says the customers sitting at the back have reached their destination, and 4 start looking toward the beast. After this, all of them, one by one, dismount from that beast, and Sheng, while making the payment, tell the beast that he is thankful for all that hard work and that there are 500 yuan. Seeing the money, the beast gets excited and thanks Sheng, saying he is too generous, and it seems he can now buy some food and wine for himself. After this, standing there, the beast says, but he doesn't understand why they ride his wilderness beast cart, which costs a lot, instead of the North Alliance space track. Although Utopia is extensive, they do not need to cross mountain after mountain and enter Utopia from this small path. Sheng smiled and replied he had made a fortune recently, so he wanted to admire some scenery that was hard to see. Yangyu, Wooly, and Tushuya are surprised, thinking that with that much celestial bronze, it's even enough for ordinary people to spend a lifetime on. After this, the beast flies from there, saying, okay, then he in his big mouth, and the distance to the Utopia's central city is still quite far, so they must be careful. Hearing this, Tu Shuya, standing beside Sheng, asks little Sheng if he is sure the person he is looking for is in this desolate area. Then Sheng, pointing toward Death Bird, replies and tells him that many civilians from the ancient empire are secretly living there. They will also come across Utopia while heading toward the Bay Lily Empire, so why not? Meanwhile, a man runs toward them, asking for help. They turn and look toward him. Seeing this, Yangyu creates her spiritual power, saying she will handle it, but Sheng stops her, telling her to move. Then Sheng told them not to do anything without his order. The boy running toward them says they must be adventurers who accepted the mission, too, and the Berserk Cypress Vine is coming. If they work together, they can beat them. However, the Berserk Cypress Vine is a kind of purple monster that desires to gain territories. Any other living being entering its territory will immediately be seen as a nutrient and hunted down. Hearing the boy's words, Sheng smiles, asking to work together, but why? Wooly stands aside, looking toward the men, thinking this man's power probably. He hasn't reached fierce rank yet, so his level must be under 40, and the enemy chasing him is almost in a savage position. There is indeed no need for the master to join hands. The men come close to them, tired. He asks Sheng if he can beat it. Also, it's a Berserk Cypress Vine if he gets entangled with it. Hearing this, Sheng replies this is his matter and then asks if it looks like it has anything to do with them. Hearing this, the men shout angrily and abuse Sheng, asking if he wants to watch other dies. Then stay there and wait for death just enough for him to gain some time. The more targets there are, the easier it is to get attacked by the Berserk Cypress Vine, and he will be on his way. Then, saying this, he ran away from there. However, hearing this, Yangyu and Tu Shuya get scared, and Wooly stands there silently while Sheng is looking toward the dust storm rising from the ground. Seeing that dust storm, Yangyu sacredly says the man wanted them to be scapegoats. Sheng, standing there, replies that's why he told them not to do anything. After this, Sheng strikes his deity's trident on the ground, and that dust storm stops there. Then, Sheng says having good intentions sometimes doesn't reap a good reward. Then, that Berserk Cypress Vine came out of the storm quickly and passed by Sheng without doing any harm, and then it grabbed that man and lifted him. The man starts to shout, asking why it is him. Then that Berserk holding him tightly and take it underground with them. The man shouted, saying with the Berserk Cypress Vine's natural behavior shouldn't have attacked the targets with more. Seeing this, Tu Shuya stands there to get scared, and then, while putting a hand on her heart, she says the Berserk Cypress Vine should have attacked those with higher numbers. Then, ask why didn't it attack them. Sheng replies that it seems like it recognizes him. Meanwhile, a girl comes out of the ground, looking towards Sheng excitedly, and says, Master God, little Master God. Seeing her, Yangyu surprisingly asks, so this is the habit of the Berserk Cypress Vine after this at night. That girl and her female companion were sitting on the tree's branch, and some others were sitting on the ground with folding legs bows before Sheng. Then, the girl gives a little introduction of herself to them, telling them she is Ba Lily, and she represents the Cypress Vine tribe and congratulates the return of Little Master God. Sheng used his all-knowing eye to get information about Ba Lily. Her level was 55 fierce rank. Then Sheng replies to Ba Lily, forget the title of Little and God, no matter how powerful he is still just a king, and then requests her not to use the word God to address him. Hearing this, Ba Lily gets confused and nods yes, saying, okay, Master God, no problem. Sheng replies fine, he won't struggle anymore. Call him whatever she likes. Then he tells Ba Lily that when the Cypress Vine tribe submitted to him, she was still a tiny grass on the tip of a branch. After 1,000 years, she has lived in this human form and managed to survive till now. Looking toward him lovingly, Ba Lily replies she doesn't know how she managed to do that. She just lived by her natural behavior. Hearing this, Yangyu, Tu Shuya, and Wooly stand beside Sheng Ba Lily and bow down before Sheng. But speaking of humans, she has a presumptuous request, too. She earnestly requests that Master God please destroy Utopia and invite him to protect her tribe's last habitat. However, Sheng was looking toward her when Ba Lily showed him a map showing that this place was a suburban district of the imperial capital. And for the past 1,000 years, practically no one has ever made significant changes in this place. But around 3 and 4 years ago, a group of self-proclaimed adventurers from Utopia started to invade and occupy their territory continuously. And what Master God sees there right now is the last territory of the Cypress Vine tribe and their remaining people. Then Sheng replies that since they still consider themselves his subject, he will naturally have to bear the responsibility for it. In that case, following the national oath, there is the concession of their tribe. However, Ba Lily served drinks them. Hearing their conversation, Tu Shuya surprisingly asks about accommodation, and Yang Yu tells her she knows. Then she explained that although the venerable emperor had accomplished the reunification, most of the creatures couldn't survive without plants. That's why the oath of concession was made between the flora and fauna, and the flora took the initiative to exchange the accommodation for the freedom and protection of its race. After this, Wooly, holding that glass of drink, says it smells delicious, and Ba Lily tells her it's drinkable, so she tastes it herself. Then Yang Yu, holding the glass of liquor, says what a unique smell, sweet. Tu Shuya shakes the drink, and that drink jumps out of the glass. Seeing this, she surprisingly asks what kind of drink it is. Ba Lily replies by looking away and avoiding eye contact with them that the sap came out of her hearing these three spit the glass out. While Sheng is drinking it, he compliments that it tastes good, then extends his hand and says, "Pour one more glass." Seeing this, Yang Yu stands behind him and shouts at him, saying it's the sap that came out of that girl. How can he still drink it, master? Then he responds by sticking his tongue out that he doesn't have to eat and drink anything to begin with, but his body seems to be addicted to sweets. However, Yang Yu gets worried, thinking that human nature is more like a dangerous trap for the most part, and this could be the price for trespassing the demon boundary and seizing its power. Then Yang Yu held that bucket of drinks, saying let her take care of these drinks. Sheng stood behind and requested her to wait because he needed another drink. Then Yang Yu ran away holding that bucket, seeing Sheng run away after her, while Ba Lily stands behind, lovingly saying to Sheng his excellency, this humble one will await there for his triumphant return. Moreover, they move from there after this. On the way, they see some dead bodies on which flies are flying. Seeing this, Sheng tells Yang Yu, Wooly, and Tu Shuya that what is remarkable about this place isn't the view they see in the distance. It's the thing right under their foot. Seeing this, Yang Yu gets scared while Sheng stands there and thinks a little sign of chaos has finally appeared. In other words, this is also what he calls the normal condition of this world. After this, they move from that place to the central city of Utopia, and to enter there, Sheng hides three of them in his body, and at the main gate, some men. They asked Sheng to show them his valid identification card while Sheng had already changed his appearance into a little child. Sheng replies with an innocent face. It's his first time coming there. Then he asks what he needs to do if he doesn't have an identification card. Then the man angrily tells them go back to where he came from. Kid, otherwise, he will beat his butt if he wastes his time again. While the deaf bird stands in the air near their head, watching them. However, Sheng starts crying, saying that he has been separated from his family and asked where a little kid like him can go. Seeing Sheng's innocent face, they lovingly look toward him and let him enter. After this, he rushes in and finds a place where nobody is. Then he tells Yang Yu, Tu Shuya, and Wooly to come out. He absorbed them in his body to enter that place, which was part of their plan. After this, one by one, three of them came out. Then Yang Yu stands there laughing, saying to Sheng that his trick is impressive. Master, even those big and tall men can't handle him. Sheng replies this isn't a good thing. Instead, it has proved to them that the security of this city-state is full of loopholes, and he can't imagine that even the Bay Lily Empire has their agents planted in Gangi City, so most likely, Utopia should also have theirs. Yang Yu stands behind worriedly and asks what are his planning to do. This time, Master turned and then looked toward her. She replies, asking if she is worrying about him. She is afraid he has lost control over himself after possessing a human nature. Then, standing before the bakery, he says he will stick to the words he has told her before. Then he looks toward her, saying to place her trust in him. He is a lot more potent than she thinks he is. She smiled, saying she trusted him. Meanwhile, Sheng smelled sweet, and he ran towards the bakery, saying he seemed to sense sweet foods over there and would look at it first. Seeing this, Yang Yu grabbed him by the head and pulled him back, saying don't be fooled by mere desserts like that. If he can't even do that, how could he expect her to trust him then? After this, they move from there while standing before the Adventurer Guild. Sheng, holding donuts and eating them, tells them this is the Adventure Guild. Look at its flag. This guild looks like some unique organization. Now they will go in and look at this place. However, a boy welcomes them there, saying he holds them to the Adventurers Guild. Then he says the four of them look pretty young. And then he asks them if they are guys there to register as adventurers. Moreover, the boy's eye color differed from the other one. Tu Shuya came ahead and replied that boy, what a high-spirited receptionist. But it's a shame he is a bit older than her. Hearing this, he gets surprised, asking if he is that old. Then Yang Yu says they are new there and know nothing about the local rules. Then she asks the receptionist if he could give them a brief explanation about it. After this, he explained to them that the Adventure Guild is an organization that Utopia officially established to provide information services for adventure. After they are done with the registration, they will start themselves from the bottom as an F-rank adventurer. With that rank, it is already legal for them to hold weapons, and they can gain experience and upgrade their position by doing missions. After becoming high-rank adventurers, they can gain more significant benefits, like authorization and rewards. Then, explaining to them on the board, he tells them the operation of the entire city is closely related to the Adventurers Guild. Anyone can post missions they want to be completed and rewards in the Adventurers Guild. Hearing this, Sheng asked if he could comprehend it as formidable adventures embodying the national force of Utopia. Hearing this, the receptionist replies it's not wrong to say it like that either and pardons him for his lack of manners, so they are a group of 5 people. Not 4 of his eyes are failing him there, and he is sorry about that. Hearing this, they are surprised. Sheng replies to him, don't be impulsive. There is no need for him to show up there while the deaf bird stands behind him in the air. After this, the boy smiles, and Sheng asks him back to the topic. This system of the Adventure Guild has been implemented for approximately 3 to 5 years, which is a pity. The boy says it's the 4th year of its implementation, then asks what he means by saying it's a pity. Sheng smiles and replies that this guild system is his foolish strategy to destroy other countries. It will lead to Utopia to face an imminent disaster without them even knowing it, and it's a pity. The boy stays silent and doesn't respond. Meanwhile, 2 girls come there. One angrily asks, daring enough to spout such nonsense in the Adventurers Guild? Just who the hell is it? Then she angrily asks how dare he humiliate their president in public like this. After this, all before some days, Sheng, pointing toward the despot's notes, angrily says, wait a minute, he knows it's late to say this, but why is he addressed as a despot? Then, while sitting on the couch heading down, he gets stressed, saying he was just killing those who had evil intent. But those intelligent beings spread fake things about him, like him being addicted to killing. But he has never done those types of wrong things. While Deaf Bird sadly listens to him, standing behind him. Then he turned his head, telling her that ever since he came out of the demon boundary, he hadn't killed anyone yet, and he could prove it to her. Then he turns on the visualization orb, telling the Deaf Bird that this is key visualization orb. Let's see how the people he has punished are doing now. The first person was Yao Yingdao, whom Yangyu attacked with her weapon in her home, lying on the bed suddenly. Her alarm rang, and she woke up holding her alarm clock. Then, holding her head, she angrily thinks she slept for 9 hours again today. Then she put that clock away and, with a sad face, thought she used to sleep for only 6 hours a day. But since then, her sleep schedule has increased by half an hour. Then she remembered that time when Yangyu attacked her with her weapon and cut the front part of her body and head. Remembering that time, she thought that one slash took away half of her spiritual powers, and now she can't even live up to her title. And then she gets up furiously, saying to herself, wait till she gets back to the level she used to have. Even if she can't get revenge on Xin Sheng, he can have her revenge on his followers. All of a sudden, her clothes are torn by something unintentionally, and she falls to the ground below. Seeing this, she gets shocked and quickly turns herself and hides her body with her hair, thinking that she should wait till she gets to the level where she can't unintentionally tear her clothes apart first. On Sheng's side, the Deaf Bird comes and sits with him on the same couch. Then, while using his hand, he says the same goes for the 2 Gangi city soldiers they met on the train. Zhang Yangyu also hurt them with her spiritual powers. Let's switch the channel. And now, this time, it was Madame Qi who was taking to Beowu. She told him the 2 soldiers who shot Xin Sheng were awake. But there was a problem. Meanwhile, Madame Lai, who was in Qi's disguise, looked toward the soldiers falling around the ground like zombies. Seeing them, Qi said it seemed like they couldn't find their balance. Then Beowu, waving his hand, tells his brother Beowon to come near him, who is wholly lost like a soldier. Looking toward Beowu, he asks what it is. Then, pointing toward the soldier, Beowu tells his brother they will be the new members of their group. Hearing this, he replies he only lost some of his emotions. He didn't become stupid. However, watching all this on the visualization orb, Sheng kept his head on his hand while Deaf Bird sat beside him, eating popcorn. Sheng says, and lastly, they will see what Qi's eye is doing, and it seems many people miss her. However, Qi comes out of the unconsciousness with open eyes and wonders where she is and what happened to her. Does she remember being poisoned by her poison? The poison will make the person lose consciousness and only listen to the one who made the poison. But it seems like she still has a little consciousness left, although she can't walk and stand up. Then, a small amount of poison came out of her mouth while she was worried, thinking the one who got poisoned was her, and the one who was poisoned was also her. She can only listen to the orders she gives to herself, but she doesn't have the consciousness to order herself. And this stupid cycle, while crawling, she thought of her training in the Empire. There must be a way. Meanwhile, the door of the secret armory of Gangi City opened. T, looking toward the door, thinks she has to return, and this is an order. And then she stood up, moving toward the door, talking to herself, returning to her empire. Sheng, watching this in the visualization orb, says she will become a deed who will sprout outstanding achievement in the soil of the empire. Then, showing everyone on the visualization orb, Sheng tells the death bird who stands beside him that everyone is alive and well, then asks how he could be a despot. However, in the present time, they are in the Adventurer Guild, the receptionist boy and his companion, 2 girls. The girl angrily asks them where they come from. Does the Bay Lil Empire send them to cause trouble for them? Then, the tall girl stands aside and looks toward her. Then she turned and looked toward Sheng, saying people from the Bay Lily Empire wouldn't talk with them, so she calmly forgave them. But she was always like this with her bad temper. After this, the boy with them briefly introduces himself and his companion to Sheng, telling him he is Kazuya Kaio, and the founder of the Adventurers Guild. He is also one of the people who took part in establishing Utopia. Then, pointing toward his companions, he says this little girl is Maya Lu, and this tall girl is Dao Zhen, and they both are adventurers with quite some power. Also, the guild administrator, Kazuya Kaio, asked Sheng. He said that the guild system is a plan to wipe out the country and asked if he could explain it in more detail. Suddenly, Sheng's eyes fell on Mailu's legs, on which someone's name was written. She also looked toward Sheng when he was looking toward her leg. After this, he tells Kazuya Kaio that he can slowly be a high-ranked adventurer as long as he has the power, as simple as that. Then Sheng asks if there is any better way to infiltrate the system. Kazuya Kaio smiles and replies, asking Sheng in return, so he means outsiders will penetrate Utopia. There is no need to worry about that, they have their plan. Then he tells while looking toward Yongyu, Wuli, and Tu Shuya that, for example, among those 3 ladies, the one with the highest level is the lady from the Dragon tribe. And that lady is from the Spirit Fox tribe. No wonder she called him old when they first met, because she likes younger boys. Hearing this, Tu Shuya was surprised. Then he looked toward Yongyu, and her reflection was in Kazuya Kaio's eyes. Then, looking toward her, he said, and as for the lowest level, but forgive him for the impropriety, it's the humanized beast from the Beast tribe. And what a rare mutation he got there. Then he smiled, saying they must have been traveling together for a long time. He won't keep looking at the others' information because he doesn't want to intrude into their privacy. Hearing this, Tu Shuya hid her body with the shelter of her arms angrily, saying disgusting. She felt like this uncle had seen her whole body. Hearing this, Kazuya Kaio shouts, saying he isn't his uncle. Then Sheng, standing before him and looking toward his eyes, says it seems like he has some remarkable eye. Kazuya Kaio smiles and replies he won't deny it. These eyes can see things ordinary people can't say. He thinks this is an ability he got after reaching this world. He turns all the information about living beings into a panel. However, a lot of meetings appear before him. Then he looks towards Sheng and his team, and the information panel of all 3 girls appears, but the information about Sheng is missing. After this, Sheng smiled, saying Kazuya Kaio, the ability he used to analyze if a person is a friend and a foe, this is his eye. And Sheng asked about himself and what kind of person he was. Looking towards Sheng, he says it seems like he isn't afraid of him violating his privacy, and doesn't mind it. Then a panel appears before Sheng. On one side of the panel, Sheng was standing, while on the other side, Kazuya Kaio was, and this panel appeared there, carrying the information about Sheng. Kazuya Kaio was shocked after reading the panel and thought, how could this be? What is this panel? Every section of this information is changing what kind of being he is. Kazuya Kaio stands in shock, and his companions, both girls, come close to him. Mailu asks what happened, sir, and then Dao Zhen asks if he is alright because his face doesn't look fine. Seeing this, Sheng tells Kazuya Kaio to stop now. He understands why he said it's a plan to destroy the country. However, the panel before Sheng was empty. No information about him emerged. Kazuya Kaio surprisingly thought it impossible. His ability is always reliable. How can this be? Then Sheng, putting a hand on his shoulder, says he doesn't mind being seen as an enemy by him, but he should know clearly who Utopia's real enemy is. He has a mission that he wants to give his country, and then he asks if he is willing to accept it or not. Kazuya Kaio surprisingly asks what task. Then Sheng, putting his hand on his heart, replies he is the person from Gangi City, and recently, he found a high-class agent from the Bay Lily Empire. and he has proof right there, and he can also say that the Baelai Empire has already infiltrated Utopia. Then, at the place of his heart, mimicry is created. And while making mimicry, Sheng says that all the nearby countries have joined the Northern Alliance. He knows everyone becomes uneasy when under the eyes of the Baelai Empire. From that mimicry, Sheng brings out celestial bronze and then shows that to Kazuya. Sheng says whoever can bring him, the Empire's spy, alive, this piece of celestial bronze will be theirs. After this, Sheng and his teammate come out from there. While on the way, Yongyu asks Sheng Master if they will take the mission, and they think they purposely instigated them. Sheng replies that the task is not essential and that the Baelai Empire has already started their evil plans. Now, Utopia will be very cautious of them, and even without him helping them, both sides will still eventually happen. But if this clash becomes a big war, he will need to protect the safety of his citizens. Looking at it from another point of view, the Berserk Cypress Vine is the last territory of his empire. Then he moves from there, telling, and it seems he still can't throw away his responsibilities as a king. If it's like that, he will openly rule there. After this, he creates his mimicry in the front part of his body, and he takes out the mobile phone from that mimicry. Then he looks back toward them, holding a mobile phone, and smiles, saying that this time, he will use the methods of this era. On the other side, Beowu and his soldier come to Ba Lily. Seeing them, she surprisingly asks who he is. Beowu says he came by the orders of Xin Sheng, and she can say he is her ally. She excitedly gets up, asking Zai Jiren if Master God's forces and Zai Jiren will help them beat the humans in Utopia. And when Beowu says he has said he is her ally, not that his name is Zai Jiren, hearing this, Ba Lily gets a little embarrassed. Then Beowu, heading down, tells her the order he received for now is rushing towards this land and if they accept orders to attack. Then, while looking toward the vast missile tank, he says he will guarantee her that not a single man will remain alive. However, Sheng and his team return to the Ba Lily Empire. Ba Lily, while waving her hand excitedly, asks Sheng if Master God has exterminated all the humans in Utopia. Hearing this, Yongyu replies, waving her hand, of course not. It doesn't just happen with the flick of his finger, and Sheng is standing behind her. Then Ba Lily starts thinking and says but before Master God could easily conquer a couple of cities in one go. Hearing this, Tu Shuya and Wooly create an image in their mind, and Tu Shuya says, like a human, Roomba and Wooly, in return, ask, won't that level the entire city? Then Sheng says the situation is different this time. They must have noticed that Utopia isn't just a simple city. It's a diagonal sword stabbed into the ground where only half is visible. Hearing this, Tu Shuya asks if it was not purposely constructed that way, and Yongyu surprisingly asks who could swing a sword that big. Then Sheng replies, of course, there is someone who can. Naturally, Wooly calls him. Standing behind, he turns and looks toward her, telling her he needs to obtain the sword Utopia, and he hoped everyone could assist him. Suddenly, from behind the braid, they heard the sound of Roger, and they moved toward there. After this, Ba Lily sits on the ground looking toward Yongyu, Wooly, and Tu Shuya, who stand there at a distance. She says Master God sent everyone on a mission. While Sheng stands beside him, he replies the most essential ability for a ruler is utilizing his subjects efficiently. If one does everything alone, they are not fit to become a ruler, and he will leave this matter for them to handle. Hearing this, she lovingly says that it is Master God, and she then folds her hand and looks toward him lovingly, asking if he can teach her how to use her human body. Sheng replies it seems like she has already adapted to sitting and burrowing underground and is ready to learn more valuable ways to utilize her human body. Then Sheng, pointing toward Beowu, says he will leave this to him. Seeing Beowu, Ba Lily surprisingly asks Mr. Zijiren is still there. Beowu stands before her, and his reflection stops the sunlight coming toward her. Then, in a severe tone, he tells her to call him commander. After this, Beowu started her exercise practice. She cried before the commander that she couldn't keep standing anymore, and he, folding his hand, replied she needed to exercise more and keep going. Seeing this, Sheng thinks he looks like he can take a breath now, and then he moves from there. On the way, Sheng looks up. Ever since he discovered the existence of technologies such as the terminal, he has noticed these peculiar things everywhere. Then, looking toward his hand, he thinks the waves containing all sorts of information differ from thousands of years ago. Since this will be their temporary base for operations, they will need to set up an intelligence hub as long as it doesn't disrupt the Cypress Vine's ecosystem. Then, while using his mimicry, he creates a controllable domain and a strange structure, thinking if he can make this structure according to his calculation, Then, he can receive all the information from the waves and transfer it into the system while being hidden from all the other terminals. Then, while holding the stone from the ground, he thinks if that guy was still there, he could have just given this task to him, and it looks like he will have to do it himself this time. Then, while creating mimicry, he starts absorbing that stone. Doing this, he thinks the controllable domain is made up of the universe's smallest particle. Invading an atom is as easy as pie, and using the particle and the fraction to rewrite the atomic structure. The energy required and emitted in this process is provided and absorbed by the controllable domain. This matter can be reconfigured quickly, and by using powerful calculations and precise controls, the controllable domain can accurately repeat the reconfiguration process on a large scale. By following these instructions, he produced and constructed the structure following his blueprint of original level matter reconfiguration. Just like this, he finished the creation of the intelligence hub. After doing all this work, he sits down under the shadow of a tree, thinking that he can finally rest. On the other side, Yongyu, on loudspeaker, announced to the soldiers that all personnel assemble from now on. Chong Yongyu is their highest commander. Then, pointing toward Wooly, she says this is her assistant. Hearing this soldier start sweating, she asks where Captain Beowu is. Then Tu Shuya gestures with her hands and replies he is spending some quality time with the Yingluo girls. Hearing this, soldier creates an image in their mind, thinking that their commander is sitting between the beautiful girls, and these girls hug him from left and right. After this, they shout angrily, saying this kind of captain who has forgotten loyalty won't follow him, and from now on, they will all follow Commander Yongyu. Meanwhile, Beowu, giving somebody exercise practice to Ba Lily, hears strange sounds. He turned, wondering why he suddenly shivered as Xin Sheng asked him for military power so he wouldn't mess around. On the other side, Yongyu says to the soldier, listen, the adventurers of Yuter have always wanted to snatch the land under their feet, but the Yingluo tribe is the older subordinate of their lord, so they must not let outsiders take it. After this, she tells Yuter that she may have tracked them down, and it is possible they will launch an attack on them tomorrow. From there on, she will guide all of them to improve their strength. And don't let those foolish adventurers dare invade quickly. Meanwhile, Sheng mimicry appears before Yongyu, and then he emerges from this mimicry in a miniature avatar. While coming out of the mimicry before her, he interrupts her for a bit. Seeing him there, she is surprised. Then Sheng says this is a miniature avatar created through the controllable field, and he is not a king who likes to lead soldiers and personally doesn't expose his existence easily. Then, sitting on Yongyu's shoulder, Sheng says he realized that she might make a mistake, so he will do a demonstration first. Next, his clone will mimic her vocal cords. All she needs to do is to bring out the corresponding lip syncing. Hearing this, she replies yes, enlightening her master. Meanwhile, she sizzles, and he enters into her mouth in the form of mimicry. She gets surprised, thinking that the master has entered her mouth. Can this not be considered a first kiss while Tu Shuya stands behind her, feeling her lascivious radar pick something? Then she started her speech, and this was Sheng, whose clone mimicked her vocal cords. Then she said she asked everyone present a question. Then she asks the soldier what kind of weapon is considered the most potent weapon, and all the soldiers answer her according to their knowledge. One of them says it is an unlimited explosion, and the other displays a weapon that can crush the enemy's heart, which is the most potent weapon. The third one asks if it is an extreme environment where no creature can survive. Hearing this, she says yes, but not right then. While using her hand gesture, she tells them a weapon as long as both the enemy and they hope they will never use it as the most potent weapon. Describing this, she thinks it's like this. She understands master leaves the rest to her. Then she coughs and says she wants to correct what she just said. Many soldiers stood before her in lines, and she told them not everyone needed to improve their strength. Instead, pick out the most influential people and arm them to an intimidating level. After this, all the soldiers line up in a fan-shaped array, and then she tells them that if Kazuya Kaio comes close to the territory of Yingluo, he can only see the first group of people, and can only see panelized information in front of a few people as long as the strongest ones are placed first. It is easy to create an illusion that all personnel are elite, then showing them her 2 fingers. She says they can't be offended if they encounter a formidable existence. No adventure would be stupid enough to act rushed while Sheng was sitting on her shoulder. Hearing this, Sheng got close to her and said not bad, it seems she has the potential to become his right hand. Hearing this, she starts blushing, saying left hug, proper hug, etc. Sheng, looking toward her, says it's the right hand. while Shuya stands behind her, takes out her tongue, and her eyes start shining. Yongyu is thinking about perverted things. Then Yongyu says today's rank division system does not just depend on one's self-possession of weapons and props, which will also affect personal strength level. The celestial copper ore is ready now, the rest is up to her Shuya. Then Shuya, while using her spiritual powers, tells celestial copper that it is very stable at high temperatures, but on the contrary, it is sensitive to low temperatures. Then she tells them that in the ultra-low temperature environment, the celestial copper will awaken as if, like a living thing, it will liquefy and attach to the nearest metal-rich material to lodge in it. After this, while holding the gun and wearing an armor suit, Shuya tells celestial copper enhancement of the weapon and armor is finished. Suddenly, Shuya starts shivering, and Wooly comes to her, asking why she froze herself like this, and she replies she doesn't know magic. She just used her spiritual power to create an endothermic reaction, and of course, she will freeze herself. Saying this, Shuya runs away from there, asking where little Xinsheng is. She needs his embrace to warm up, while Yongyu angrily grabs her tail, saying don't disturb master because of such little things. After this, Yongyu turns her head, asking the soldier about his level. Then, he tells the last time, without a weapon evaluation survey, that he seems to be at level 12. Then Yongyu, giving him the armor suit, tells him to try this set on. After wearing this set, he replies it's smaller and lighter, but it doesn't seem to have changed much. Then Sheng, while using his Eye of Wisdom, says there is enough extravagant use of celestial copper, even if it was not strategic intimidation but actual combat. It is more than enough to deal with Yuder's adventure, while the Solider level after wearing this suit has increased to crazy level 72. However, Dao Zhen, the Yuder City's dueling arena manager, hiding behind the tree branch, asks her companions if it is Yingluo's territory ahead. Mai Lu, vice president of the Yuder Adventurers Guild, replies this group of people conspired with the Yingluo tribe. Sure enough, entrusting the task was to incite conflict. After this, Kazuya Kaio says, can't say that Lily Empire is, of course, ambitious. It would be strange if no spies were sent. However, right now, the threat of this group of people is more significant. After this, he clenched his fist, telling Mai Lu and Miss Dao Zheng that they must leave the battlefield as soon as possible if there is any danger. Then Mai Lu, folding her hands, says Kazuya Kaio has always been a cautious character, but she has also learned to stay behind more and less. Then Dao Zhen, keeping her head on Kazuya Kaio's back, says that he will say the same thing they already know every time he acts. Then he replies, even so, he still has to say, after all, there is no better than his world. Both girls stand beside him. Suddenly, some people come there, and Kazuya Kaio tells them to scout their ins and outs carefully. Both the girls replied that they followed Master Kazuya Kaio's commands while these people started slogging. On the other hand, Sheng was watching all this with the help of his intelligence hub. Shuya lies with her head in Sheng's cradle, and he lovingly puts his hand on her head, thinking they came Yuder Scurry residents. After this, Sheng believes that he looks forward to his performance. Kazuya Kaio, Yuder's real power president of the Adventurer Guild, is also a visitor from another world. After this, Mai Lu sniffs and stands up with her team. She tells them there are many young and middle-aged male human scents. The numbers that can be clearly distinguished are no less than 100. Hearing this, Kazuya Kaio asks if there are no adventurers in the Steel Art City. They can only be soldiers. Then he tells the army of the Steel Art City that dared to cross the border they divided 5 years ago, and this is an open invasion. After this, pointing to the path ahead, he tells his team that righteousness is on their side to drive these intruders out. However, Yuder Adventurer number 1 sets up traps, and Yuder Adventurer number 2 controls the horizon, holding a gun and hiding herself in the tree branch. Then, Adventure number 1, hiding behind the tree, says going in without God and Ghost, knowing this is the style of adventurers. However, Shuya was doing psychic perception, and then after opening her eyes, she says, coming from the west, a small team of 4 people. They are all scouts of the technology class and do not perceive anyone who can use the skill from the demon realm. Then Yongyu, holding her weapon, asks if technology is better than the ability that her master bestowed her today. She will try it. On the other side, Adventurer number 1 found the enemies with the binoculars. He informed Master Kazuya Kaio by phone and requested him to help them confirm the other party's strength. Then Kazuya Kaio tells him to turn on the Eye of Dominance. While using the Vision of Sovereignty, Kazuya Kaio sees the soldier coming toward them on the way. While watching them, he thinks the image of independence is a prop he made. It allows him to see elsewhere through it, and the picture can simultaneously penalize the information of what it sees. Then he saw that soldier and observed their level. The soldier was from level 72 to 74-4. Then he thought, all crazy level, how can that be? According to the level of strength in this world, the threshold line of the story 70 crazy is a significant dividing line. The powerhouses above the crazy level all have the ultimate skill to defeat an unscathed opponent in one move, commonly known as the death skill. If there are no relevant countermeasures and strong defenses, battles above the crazy level are often decided instantly, and it's either death or severe injury. Then he replies to adventurer number 1 to not alarm them that he isn't their opponent and to pay attention to his safety. Moreover, adventurer number 1, standing with the tree, thinking it seems to be a difficult opponent in a head-on fight. Then let's play craftily till the end. Meanwhile, Yongyu attacked him with her weapon, and the man fell. While Yongyu holds a gun, she kindly accepts his spirit and soul. Also, the phantom knife spirit's body is standing behind her. Then Yongyu says this weapon handed down by the ancestors of the Chongyang family can cut and manipulate the soul. After the last time, the master communicated to the demon realm with her, and she can now even remotely control her spiritual energy. However, adventurer number 2 is sitting on the tree fire on Yongyu, saying the person who just said to play craftily is doing craftily. Moreover, Yongyu hardly saves herself. While looking toward Yongyu, she says no hit feedback. This is not an entity. However, Yongyu ordered the knight's spirit body to attack her with a knife. Rain attacked her and made her, and then she fell from the tree. While feeling down, she tells her companion they are exposed and sprinted. However, the Uter adventurer number 3 was flying in the air with a plan like parachute. While in the air looking down, she thinks it's so dangerous under the tree canopy. Did they underestimate these intruders? Suddenly, she saw Ba Lily laughing, asking her if this lady had come there and why not come down. Meanwhile, Ba Lily grabs and binds her with a berserk cypress vine. With teary eyes, she asks if this is a wild turnip vine, and without support, it can't extend to mid-air. However, Ba Lily binds her and holds her in his arms. He replies that the Yangluo clan can finally stand up thanks to his person, and the girls stick with Ba Lily's bosom, and blush, saying it seems being entangled isn't that bad. Meanwhile, Ba Lily starts trembling, saying that being strong is tiring. After this, Ba Lily sat her on the ground, saying, let's go and sit down on the floor while that berserk cypress vine takes her inside the earth. Seeing this, the girl gets scared, and with teary eyes, she says no, she was wrong. However, Uter adventurer number 5, talking with her companion on wireless earphones there, she hiding behind the tree, and tells those 3 are all to blame for screwing up. As soon as she emerges from the side of the 3, 2 soldiers holding guns stand before her. Seeing them, she says these little boys also discovered this elder sister. Hearing this, the soldier replies it would be weird if he could not find her after being developed so well that she isn't suitable for being a scout. She takes out her weapon, asking why he wants to force her to surrender with more deception. And he can say whatever he wants, but she, the elder sister, will never surrender to an opponent more petite than her. However, the soldiers fire and cut her shirt by arm. Seeing this, she is surprised. After this, they start firing at her back. An explosion occurs, and her dress is torn, and she gets completely naked. Then she covers herself with her arm, and her weapon falls and gets stuck in the ground. Seeing this, she gets scared and says big enough. She surrenders. Then the soldier pointing his gun toward her says because their preparations were a bit rushed, he used this gun for the first time. And let's give this